Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Wealth Preservation Podcast. I'm Mark Seither.
And I'm Josh Saunders. Mark and I love learning about business, entrepreneurship, and how people started, grew, and preserved what they have worked so hard for. We have all made some cringeworthy mistakes in life and in business, and we want to help entrepreneurs and business owners avoid those pitfalls.
But while there's no blueprint for definitive success or failure, we can rely on the stories of other entrepreneurs for the lessons on how they launched and scaled up their business.
Some of the questions we love answered on each episode are, what mistakes have you made? What would you do differently in life and business? And what would you outsource first?
So, come join us as we hear from entrepreneurs around the globe on topics such as their origin story, how they innovated in their industry, and the advice they feel aspiring entrepreneurs need to hear today.
We also like to have a little fun. So you hope you enjoy this episode and it inspires and encourages you.
Hey everyone, very excited to have Jordan and Melinda Minyard. Is that how you pronounce your last name, Minyard?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Anytime I'm telling people how to pronounce it, I always hang on the yard to really let them know how it's spelled. But it's Minyard. Any of it works.
Okay. Yeah. We'll go with Minyard, right? Yeah. Okay, so Jordan and Melinda Minyard, and they are owners of the Poor Choice Coffee Shop in Auburn, California. Jordan and Melinda, how are you?
Doing great.
Hi, we're doing great. Thanks for having us.
Perfect.
Yeah, and let's just clarify, this isn't like any coffee shop, too. This is like a coffee experience on a whole nother level. And I after moving to Knoxville, it's one of the things that Mark and I know we both miss after having lived in Auburn and being born and raised there. So kudos to you guys for doing something that's amazing.
I will admit, when I saw a coffee shop was going in that building, it's one of those things where you look at, you're like, a coffee shop. Best of luck. See those open up all over the place, and and then when my wife and I, you guys were our first place we went to after we had our first, firstborn.
Aww.
It was like our first, oh my gosh, I don't think I can take the sleepless nights anymore. Like, let's go get coffee or something. And I walked in and I was like, this is going to work. Wow, this is awesome. This is going to work.
Cool.
Yes. So Mark and I's quick pitch, if you're in Auburn, California for any reason and you either need a pick me up or a let me down, either an espresso coffee drink or maybe a beer and a glass of wine, hit up the Poor Choice. It's one of my favorite spots. So kudos to you guys for making something so amazing.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That was probably what made me think it was going to, it was going to work, because I was like, I can now just tell my wife, like, hey, you want to go get coffee? By the way, they have tap handles. I'm getting a beer.
Yeah. Something for everyone.
Yeah. Something for everyone. That's it. Perfect. So sweet. Kind of, as we kind of go into, let's kind of start, and you guys give us your kind of I don't know what to call it, elevator pitch, but your kind of quick recap of what you guys do, what the Poor Choice is, and kind of what you guys had envisioned and what you guys have created.
Yeah. So for Poor Choice, it was really born for us out of brokenness and a difficulty of life, marriage struggles, life struggles, and understanding how essential community was. For us, specifically our church community, that was the community that was near and dear to us, that really walked some difficult roads for us. And so for us, the Poor Choice was an opportunity to build specific community within Auburn.
Okay.
We think community is built in a few different ways, and there's a million different views on what community is, and it's such a buzzword, right? But
sure.
We think community is the opportunity to push people together, to be vulnerable and open and be able to talk about things that matter. And that's really what Poor Choice was built for. The reason, or the way, I should say the how in getting people through the doors to build that community is, I always say we're kind of duping people into walking through the doors. And the way we do that is with products that are unique and consistent and things you cannot get in our community at all. And so for us, specialty coffee was that vessel that was unique and different in our community. It was something lacking. And so we really wanted to take the specialty world to the foothills and say, there's a different type of coffee that you guys have never experienced. And we know once you experience it, you won't be able to go anywhere else. And so that really became that first vessel to draw people in. And then, of course, once they're in there, we can throw the tap handles at them with 33 tap handles that consists of beer and kombucha and hard ciders and all kinds of mead, all kinds of fun stuff. And then a wine list that's really unique. We really do try and have something for everyone. There's craft root beer. Our food list is incredibly unique, so that ultimately everyone has to come through the door. And the goal is that person who's sitting at home dealing with feedback loops, internal feedback loops that are dark and difficult. If they think, man, I really want something like a cappuccino, I want something like an avocado toast, I really want this product that I know I can only get at Poor Choice. They come through the door and we get an opportunity to see them and to hopefully get them to speak the things that they're dealing with. So that's the big picture. That's the elevator pitch of Poor Choice. Within that is a million nuances that we get to be a part of, and normally from a distance, right? Is watching relationships establish there, watching marriages established there, and little kids grow up and experience a space that is unique and important to them. We get to be a part of so many things from afar and up close and personal, and that's the part for us that's really unique and special.
Yeah, which funny you go into that level of detail, because I mean, like I mentioned, a few minutes ago, like literally when my wife and I were like, "Oh my gosh, I'm going crazy," it was just our go-to was just like, "You want to just go to Poor Choice? Like, I just got to get out. Like, I just got to find some sanity here."
Yeah.
Well, perfect. Well, and for our for the first episode, we really want to get to know like kind of how you guys got to that point of like, hey, we got to do this, and that's usually a pretty lengthy process. So to kick things off, I mean, did you guys have independently from one another, did you guys have dreams as kids of running coffee shops and being entrepreneurs, or what were 8-year-old Jordan and Melinda thinking?
Yeah. You want to go into your entrepreneur side?
Well, yeah. So no, we never ever wanted to be in your food. That was something staunch about for a long time. That's something that crazy people do who have death wishes upon their happiness and their future freedom. But yeah, the path of getting there was definitely long and twisted for us. I started out in a family where my mom was an artist and my dad had a precision sheet metal fabrication shop that he had started when I was 12. So when I was 12, I got to watch my stay-at-home mom and my dad sit together and make a decision where my dad was working at the time for a manufacturing company in Grass Valley, and he was their customer relations manager. And they came down from the top and said, "Hey, we're going to fire all of our customers today. We want you to write a letter to say we're only going to keep our top 3 customers, and we're going to make one great product that our top customer makes." So my dad sat at his desk and he typed out this letter that said, "Hey, we're firing you all, and you got to go find someplace else to have all your parts made." And then he went home and he sat with my mom and he got out his typewriter and he typed up a letter that said, "Hi, I'm opening a new shop and I'd like to hire you all as customers, and I'll be ready to go in 2 weeks." And he sent that in the mail and signed both the letters and sent them both off. 12, I got to watch my dad do this sort of massive leap of faith to jump out and try something new, and got to, become an indentured servant in his business and learn how to work hard, and watch my mom go from being a stay-at-home housewife in the hills to watching my mom do accounting and learning how to do all these things as a family that were very, very inspiring for me in a lot of ways. So I saw all the ups and all the downs that come with that at a very level.
Yeah.
Really positive, lasting impacts, and some of them negative, like all things. But I think it gave me that desire and that freedom to be okay to kind of run off the cliff after your dream, and that was something that really shaped my desire, and also my consequence in some ways. Like, if it's worth it and you want it bad enough, just go and do it.
Yeah.
Did you ever go back to your parents and be like, "Hey, now that I'm in the entrepreneur world, I officially think you guys are nuts, and doing what you did, like, that was crazy"?
No, but I think they say that to us more than we do to them.
Okay.
Like, I don't know how you guys are doing what you're doing.
You're like, "Well, me neither." So that makes 2 of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for you, Melinda, what were some of those kind of ups and downs, right? What were some of the highs, lows, and because I'm sure they translated or were similar to what you guys went through when you opened the Poor Choice. So kind of what were some of those that you saw and what did you kind of learn from that?
Yeah, some of the biggest ones were things that obviously lessons that you see when you're young are difficult to understand what actually was going on until you yourself are a little more seasoned in life.
Right. Yeah.
Balance and boundaries and time versus success in your company are really, really hard. And now as a mom of 3, I can see very clearly, what my parents were trying to accomplish. And, there's only so many minutes in the day. And how do you prioritize the success and the health of your business that is a baby and needs everything from you? With your actual children who need everything from you. So there was lots of instances that I can remember where, I'm going through the hormonal ages of 12 to 16 as my dad is trying to start this business, and my parents largely vanished from my life in a lot of ways, from having my full-time stay-at-home mom to, my dad working 100-hour work weeks and her being right there by his side. So there are lots of things that, sacrifices that our family made that I don't think I realized until I was older that wasn't normal. Like, it wasn't normal food for dinner 5 nights a week, or for your parents to just give you a credit card once you turn 16 and say, go, be safe, see you later, see you on Friday. So there's like that where now I'm a teenager that's growing up, and I'm excited to be more present for him in a lot of ways that my parents were able or had the tool set to be present for me in some ways. But I can also really appreciate that my parents did everything in their power to run their business, be there for my brother and I.
Yeah.
It's not, and I see myself failing my kids in 1,000 ways every week of present or not. If I'm here, but I have the freedom to be on my computer typing things out and working away. Am I actually here with them? How do they feel that you're giving them your attention just because you're home, even if you're on a device working away?
Right. Is that really at home? Yeah. Yeah. So Jordan, for you, kind of had, I kind of know we'll get into your entrepreneur journey too, but kind of how did some of those, kind of those lessons that Melinda, learned and brought to the table, kind of how did that help shape the Poor Choice and what you guys were going to do? And, did you put some boundaries around that as you started the business?
They shaped what we have done immensely. We've been married 21 years, we've been together 23. I've had an opportunity to watch. I mean, we dated when she was 16, so as she's going through the difficulties of that new business, I was there working at her father's business and mother's business as well, in high school, and so there was opportunity for me to see firsthand the way that impacted, especially her brother, who was 3 years younger. So I got to see him, go there and beat up on him when he was sitting in front of the TV after school and say, get off,
right.
Get him out and about, and so it really did shape what we have done in more ways than even we stop and think, consider most often. So for us, boundaries have been the essential piece of this business.
Okay.
So for years, I was really indentured to the Poor Choice in many ways. It was 20-hour days, but even within that, I would take as many times as I could to continue to be with my kids and spend the time that was essential. But it was really difficult, certainly. And then I hit a wall where it was like, this is too much, and I'm losing sight of why we're doing this, and I'm losing my love and passion for what we're doing, and that was really a turning point for us too, to say, okay, we have to be more intentional with boundaries now, and that's what I've been able to do for the last 3 or so years. And honestly, truly, we talked about from day one too, is that our kids were very young at the time. They were 8 and 5, and those are formidable years. Don't get me wrong; every year is formidable. That's very different than with Mel when she was 12 and her brother was 9. That's a very different situation of kind of into those teenage years and trying to start a business. So we were very that time as well. And now our baby's almost a year old, and so she's got to benefit from having a lot more time with mom and dad too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot to unpack there, but Jordan, let's kind of jump into your kind of entrepreneurial journey too, from kind of at a young age, and we'll go and then Man, that's probably like 3 episodes that you and Melinda could talk about being intentional and time management and all that kind of stuff. But let's kind of go into, kind of Jordan's entrepreneurial journey.
Sure. Yeah. So I was the youngest of 5 kids, raised in a household of a father who was a lineman for the phone company. And, for me, I was the accidental child, which I did get my parents to admit, um, that really they were at that point, I think, done parenting and just didn't have the ability. So
Right.
I was by my siblings in a lot of ways, but honestly, by my 10 years old, I pretty well raised myself. I was out every day, anyways, from a young age, just out riding the bike on the tracks, just out doing whatever. But by the time I hit 12 years old, I had a job for a camp, which is near and dear to Josh's heart, called Mountain. And I started at 12 years old working there every weekend. And so I would go up there Friday evening, come home Sunday night. And then in the summer, I would live up there. So I really started, full-time work and understanding what full-time work was at 12 years old. And then through high school, I wasn't at home. I lived in every friend's house, my pastor's house. I was everywhere but home. So for me, it was a quick and early raising and maturity to say, I know what work is and what needs to happen in order to be able to support myself. And at that point, even thinking through what marriage would look like, certainly at 16 years old. Melinda was my first girlfriend, and I kind of held off on dating people until I was kind of ready to be serious about it. And so by the time dating, for me, it was just time to grow up and be mature. And so, my entrepreneurial background really started with an understanding of what it took just to work hard. And I think that of business that is essential and missed most often is that you just have to work hard. Just do, and so for me, it really pushed that understanding and desire just to kind of get after it, and whatever it took, we're going to make it happen. And that's how I opened after college. I don't know if do you want me to kind of talk through, post growing up, like into marriage and college?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah. Let's absolutely touch on college.
Yeah.
I was actually going to ask about that next. So,
perfect. Yeah, so we met on a blind date in high school, and we got pretty serious early. Where it was like we both just kind of didn't want to mess around. It was like let's think about the future. Let's think about marriage. And so she was a year behind me in school, but I actually proposed to her when she was still in her senior year of high school. So we got married when she was 3 weeks out of high school, and I was a year removed. And we moved down south shortly after for college. Went to college together, married, and put our way through. I didn't get any help. There was no money in my family, so there wasn't an opportunity to get help. And unfortunately, getting married early and starting school right away didn't allow us to get a Pell Grant or a Cal Grant. Sorry, we got a Pell Grant, but not a Cal Grant, which is a California sort of aid for the low income. But it went off of our parents' income rather than my income or our income. And so we didn't get the benefit of that. So it was working full time all the way through to make sure that we could actually afford and taking lots of student loans. And that was tough.
Although my parents did pay our rent.
They did.
Yes.
Her parents paid our rent, which was we would live off $23 a week. And we did that for 4 years.
I'll never forget. Asked us what kind of a budget we were on, and we just looked at each other and laughed, and we said, the one where you don't spend any money unless it's necessary.
Yeah, not a dime. Yeah, tips would fill up my tank of gas. We had 2 white Corollas, and I could get just enough to get to work and back, and that was it. And so, and I managed a coffee shop, and through most of college too, which
kind of
was
like Dutch Bros.
Kind of like a drive-through, which helped a ton in just my understanding of customer service in that sense. But for us, it was really about getting into life early, and I always told everyone I would have got married earlier. Like I think we both understood what it took to survive and to take care of each other, and that was kind of never really questioned. So,
well, the thing that we always said when people would ask us, why do you want to get married so early? We would always say, well, there's nothing that we want to do that we can't do together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was true, and we have got to do a lot together, which is pretty amazing. And I think that's a strength of our marriage, and certainly also the difficulty of an early marriage as well, is that you feel like, well, what's the time that I had by myself, and where's the time that I had to grow, on my own 2 feet. And so that, and we can talk. I'd certainly want to talk about that portion of our life too later, but just the struggles of that in marriage as well. But all of those formidable years, coming up through, and then certainly going through college and being married and having the only apartment on campus, where we were married off campus with all of our friends, it became the hub for everyone to hang out. And Josh's sister-in-law was at our apartment every day. And, we just had a really cool community of people. And I think that was really the start of our understanding of what community was. Opening your home and being a hub for anyone and everyone to be, and that was for us what I characterize my college years as. It was, this is a landing spot for anyone who needs love and who needs affection. And we had a lot of people living. We had a 2-room apartment, which we weren't supposed to have, but yeah, the 1-bedroom wasn't available when we moved down there, and they let us stay in it. But it ended up being a huge blessing, because there was always someone living in that other room, and that for us was the start of our hospitality, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what you're talking about, not having any time between, Melinda had 3 whole weeks between graduating and getting engaged. I mean, that's all the time you need, right?
No, she was engaged like 6 months before. She had 3 weeks after high school before marriage.
Oh. Yeah. There we go. 20. I mean, you can do a lot in 21 days.
That's
Come on.
Told me at the end of the school year that I had earned a detention for something on a Saturday, and I looked her in the eye and I said, "I'm sorry, I can't come to that because I have my bridal shower that day."
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, so you can write a letter to my parents, or you can do whatever. I'm just not going to show up. So just so you know. Yeah. Not going to show up.
I brought a letter from the maid of honor.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the closest thing I got to a doctor to excuse this absence. But.
Yeah. So I think it's super. But by the way, I just want to make sure I get this. Jordan, your oldest brother's a jerk. Just so you know that. I just want to make sure we get that on for the record.
Yeah, he should be listening, I hope, at some point. And
yeah. So Jason, if you're listening, you're a jerk. Everybody hates you. Just so you know that.
Yeah, he beat the snot out of all of us, including Josh.
He did. Yeah. So that's my one jab back. I've got to get him on a podcast.
It's actually why Josh launched this podcast.
All part of my devious evil plan.
Yeah, but 2,500 miles away, that's the only reason you're jabbing.
That's right. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, so Melinda had this, just kind of, I want to say, just, upbringing that was around entrepreneurship, and kind of got to see the goods and the bads. And, Jordan, you guys started just really young. But so let's kind of unpack that part of it where you guys, for you, Melinda, and how that affected you guys starting was just all the time it took, right? And you guys talked about putting boundaries in, but how did you do that kind of when you first started, Poor Choice, when you're getting ready to launch this? Because, when you launch a business, there's really no other way to do it than to go all in and give it all you can't half-ass it, right? There's no way to be like, hey, we're going to open half a coffee shop and serve half, that just doesn't work, right? So you kind of have to, there initially has to be a ramp, right? You kind of have to know that going in, but how did you guys kind of manage that? And how did you lean on your experiences from before to kind of, handle that, right?
Well, I'll answer that really, real easily with I didn't.
Okay, fair. Totally fair.
Opened in November of 2017, and in August of 2018, I went into the hospital for 8 days because my body shut down physically.
So it went well, is what you're saying. It went just super well at the beginning.
Yeah, very easy.
So what happened, basically, we went down to school and then moved back here in 2006, and I started working for my dad again, and worked through having our 2 children, enjoyed the heck out of all the time that I had there at my dad's business, and had a really, what I felt, was like my forever career with my dad. And so that financial freedom really gave Jordan the opportunity to open Poor Choice. And so when we originally started to do this, it was like, oh, this is just going to be Jordan's, his hobby business that he's going to do, and I'll kind of continue being the primary breadwinner for our family, so that he can go out and kind of have fun with a coffee shop. Is the way my mind took it, and then obviously that was not at all the case.
Right? Yeah. Yeah.
To this massive thing that sucked up every part of us, and through all of that, I was still working for my dad, and
Right.
got to the point where I was just stretched way too thin, trying to be all things as women do. We just think that we should be full-time moms and put in everything at our jobs. And what's that saying that says work like you don't have a family and parent like you don't work? And we always try to be everything to everyone.
Yeah.
And I woke up, I was sitting at my desk one day and got like a stabbing pain in my shoulder. And at first was like, oh, maybe I didn't eat breakfast, or maybe, I don't know, maybe I just have been busy and I forgot to, I don't know, have a meal or something. So I went home, laid down in bed, and woke up and was like, oh my gosh, I think I'm having a heart attack, and didn't know what was going on. Got this massive fever, could barely move. Jordan finally took me to the hospital, and I was nearly septic by that point. And it was some mystery infection. They had no idea what it was. They couldn't find it. It was just like a throbbing pain in my shoulder that they couldn't ever quite pinpoint. And so I was in the hospital for 10 days or so. And then that was the first, like, oh my gosh, I have to slow down moment, where I think my literally just shut down. And so that was a great opportunity for me to offload some of my responsibilities, to delegate a lot of stuff that I had started to absorb in the cafe. And after that, I did not return to my job with my dad. And that was a really huge shift for us.
Yeah.
It took me a long time to get back physically from that. And it was a huge, huge shift that we in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And that, the balance or lack thereof was obviously, it's understandable, right? I think it's important that as people are listening, starting businesses, to know that you can't plan a business, right? So I always tell people that you're going to spend all the time planning, and then you're going to do none of the things you plan, because it's going to end up the opposite, which is, that's just the nature of it. But you can anticipate the twists and turns, the amount of time and effort it's going to take for you to make that business successful. And so within that, you always, I think the things that become intentional is saying, when I'm with those whom I love, I'm going to give them my attention, right? And that's the piece for us that has been essential, but for me, the most difficult, because I have 20 to 30 employees, depending on the time, that are always in need, and I've made myself available to each one of them on a very personal level, as well as a community. And so there's always someone in need and hurting, and if the phone rings, I pick it up. That's one that I have heard from one of my very close friends, Chris, who's also our chef. He makes it very, very clear now in his life, again, after going through a lot of brokenness as well. But when a phone rings, he picks it up. And so, because you never know who at that point needs you, critical. And I've picked up those phones of the critical moments. And for me, it becomes very difficult, because that means that my phone is on, right? And I am available. And so there are times when I will go dark with the phone, but it's very few and far between.
Sure.
Open 7 days a week. So there's always a need, right? There's always something going on.
Yeah.
So that becomes very difficult to be intentional. And so I have to be more creative with the way that I spend time, and make sure that my kids know that I'm available and with them. The time in bed becomes important, where I can sit with them and look them in the eyes and talk with them and pray with them, and all the stuff that matters to us. And so I can do those things. But I can promise you that the entrepreneurial life is a difficult one to balance.
Hey everyone, quick pause here to let you know you can find more episodes at wealthpreservationpodcast.com.
Or if you want videos, you can go to YouTube, and we're also there.
Subscribe, and you'll be updated on our most recent guests and any other news we have coming out.
Thanks for listening. So, we kind of like to ask this question, kind of for everybody is, do you think being an entrepreneur is something that you're born into, or do you decide something that you become, or is it just something that you're like, oh, hey, I see a problem, and I'm like, well, if I don't start the business and fix it, no one's going to do this. So kind of, where are you guys at on that spectrum? It's one of those questions we don't think there's the right answer for.
Yeah, that seems like a hard one to answer, but I feel most relatable to the third one.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. When you see something, that's what Poor Choice was for us. It was that draw of, this is a need that our community has, and we have the compulsion to fill that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there's
that. And what was kind of the catalyst of like when you guys decided like, hey, this is like when did you recognize that need?
Yeah.
Right, because it's not like Auburn didn't have a coffee shop,
right?
But it
So that was actually a pretty was a big turning point where Jordan was running a construction company at that point, and he had lost one of his best guys, and which was actually your brother.
Right. Yeah.
And
that bum
really left such a big void that Jordan had to leave the Cush sales, customer service, and design portion, and put on a tool bag again and go back and start actually working. And he didn't really want to do that. He didn't want to return to that, and didn't really feel like it was a feasible direction anymore. And it was a moment for us where we looked at each other and was like, well, find out what you want to do. You're only 34. Like, you got the
baby.
Tips. Find out what you want to do. Because at that point, like I said, I was working and had a full career with my dad, and like, go ahead, go explore what it is. And so we had a couple months of just, on our knees praying and seeing what the Lord had for us, and him sort of looking like, well, what would I want to do? Would I, could I go this way or could I go that way?
Yeah.
And one day, a friend of ours, who had a small shop in town, had moved to her downtown location, and she had invited us over for her new sort of grand opening. And we were in there chatting with her. This is Deb from Stella and Parker. If you guys ever went there, it's an amazing little boutique.
She's out in North Carolina now. Left us like you, Josh.
So we're watching.
And Mark, you both left us.
Yeah.
And she goes, hey, you guys, you got to come next door and see. You got to look in the window. And next door was the old Auburn Drug Co. And it was for sale. And we walked over there, and Jordan and I together peered in the window. And there was something kind of magical that happened in that moment, where we looked into the window of Auburn Drug Co. and it all clicked. We literally saw the vision for Poor Choice, because we looked at old marble soda counter.
Yep.
And we're like, oh my gosh, can you even imagine how gorgeous craft coffee bar would be right there?
Yeah.
And we looked in the back and we saw the sunlight like filter through the ceiling, through the cracks in the ceiling. And we're like, can you even imagine? Like, we could see a giant tap wall back there, and the craft brewing situation was really exploding in Auburn at that point.
Right. Yeah.
Everybody was sitting in, industrial hangars to drink their beer. And I looked at Jordan and I said, can you imagine if all the 4 major breweries in town could be on tap in one place?
Yeah.
And feeling of like, oh my gosh, we could accomplish that. Like, we could have Crooked Lane and Moonraker and Auburn Ale House and Knee Deep on one flight that people could come in and drink. Like, how could...
Which I think is genius. Yeah. I was a big fan of that idea.
So, toured the building the next day, put an offer on it that night.
And really good wine.
Good wine.
That was the thing.
Yes.
That's really what drove all of my passion for it. But yeah.
So we were just going to call it the Auburn Drug Co. because we figured beer, coffee, and wine were like the best drug that you could ever get.
Right. Yeah. All the drugs you need, right?
Uppers, downers, criers. Yeah.
Yeah. All of it.
Store this for the community. It'll be beautiful. So we walked it that day or the next day and put an offer on it that day. And we got no response. And so a couple other people, I guess, in the community have been putting offers, and the building just sat for a long time. And so after a couple of weeks, we had let the dream of the Auburn drug code die, but the vision of Poor Choice was there. And so really, Jordan went on a hunt at that point. I went back to work, and Jordan went on a hunt to go find a home for Poor Choice.
Yeah.
And so into the door and found the Lou Mandarin couple, and Brian and Sunny ended up getting a lease there.
That's super amazing. I mean, that's a really cool story on how you guys just kind of, cut that vision and how things kind of happen in a moment. And you're like, you have the vision and you're like, oh, how much is it going to take to get there too, right? Because then you got to start thinking about the details, right? Which is,
yeah.
So did anything ever happen with the Auburn Co. with that building? Is it still empty?
Yeah, recently, within the last 2 years,
Yeah.
maybe? Yeah, it's to a local gal who's she kind of had like an inside track, I think, to the ownership, and which was a complicated situation, I think, in itself.
Right.
Why responses came, and they are doing like a boutique, vintagey sort of a mercantile store.
Okay.
Yeah, it needs to be done. It's the building itself is just needs some love, but it's a cool, it's such a neat spot and such an iconic spot in Auburn. So, but the itself is really great. It's a cool little
I will
spot.
say also, I'm really thankful that we did not get that location. A lot of reasons.
Right.
For one is that it's really, really a lot of opinions that you walk into when you're storing a place that's near so many parts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can.
And it's tiny.
It's
so,
tiny.
Yeah. Two reasons.
Which I mean, you guys are usually packed anyway, so I couldn't imagine if you guys had a smaller place. I mean, that place is always hopping.
Yeah. So to close the loop too, just to further for the initial question that started this too, is that I do think that entrepreneurship for us to answer that question is seeing a need and filling it, but at the same time, if you're an entrepreneur, there's nothing else you can do. I mean, it's
right.
Yeah, I'm gonna own a business because that's what we do there, and we're serial entrepreneurs. We always say it's like we just want to keep building businesses. So we love.
It's a disease. It's a sickness.
Yeah.
In a good and bad. I mean, in a good and bad way for sure. Yeah, it is absolutely.
Yeah, it is though. It just we love it. We feel compelled to do it, and we are trying desperately to get more people to step into our community and do things well. One of my pet peeves of our town is that it's never been able to get out of its way. If you just get out of the way of Auburn, it just shines like a beacon because it really is one of the more incredible places in the world. So the other pet peeve is that there's a lot of hobby businesses, and we need people who are serious about business, who want to come in and say we want to do it well. Business requires effort and ingenuity and creativity and also recreating, rebranding, and all of the things. And it's a never stopping, never ceasing machine that you have to keep.
Always.
And the more people who are serious about business want to step in and do it well, there's so much room for them here, and we try and help people all the time to find space, or I'll come build it out for you, whatever we need to do. We just want to see people thrive in our town.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you want to see everybody succeed, because you're like, this is a great place to succeed at. I mean, there's so many opportunities and great place to do it.
We don't want to leave Auburn. So if I have to go past the trestle and I past Elm, east or west, then I feel like I'm out of town, and I want to stay here and get everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
It really is.
And so because you guys had that vision, right, and you guys ended up going to a different building. As you guys were really formulating that, putting your vision on paper and kind of mapping it out, I mean, did you guys have people who are either like naysayers and being like, what are you thinking, or like how did you guys kind of handle that? Because I know some people are met with like open arms of like, hey, go do it, and other people they are not met with such enthusiasm.
Yeah, so I had the distinct pleasure of building out building out the Poor Choice, by myself, and it was just me, so I was in there doing it every day, and I got to hear that the latter comment, I don't know, 30, 40 times a day. Like, oh yeah, well, nothing works up here. Good luck. I mean, every day, dozens of times. Oh, how are you going to get people to park up here? Yeah, good luck. Oh, there's been multiple businesses up this way. It never works. So, hope it goes well. No, they always give that. Boy, I pity you. It's like, thanks for the encouragement. Yeah. So it was that.
And I would think in that small town, having grown up there, like in Colfax and these areas, is that there's few businesses that really like did something that was awesome. It was always just like a hobby, like you said, a hobby business. And you're like, I kind of do this thing, and it was just kind of halfway, right? It wasn't like we're gonna make something that's amazing, because people will go to some place that's amazing. I mean, if you look at kind of the craft beer scene, like we talked about, Crooked Lane, Moonraker, Knee Deep, Auburn, like those are amazing businesses. They did something and did it like the best, right? I mean, obviously you can argue about which brewery is the best in Auburn, and that's a fighting word that you could talk about all day long. But but they really did something that was incredibly well done, right? And so I know that's what you guys are trying to do, is like with the coffee shop, because I kind of know your personality, Jordan, and you just want to make it the best, right? It wasn't just going to be like a coffee shop; it was going to be like an amazing coffee shop, and not just like amazing coffee, but amazing all of it, right? Like the seating and the decor and the who you guys brought in. Nothing was going to be halfway done, and so I think that's when people are like, "Oh, it didn't succeed." You're like, "Yeah, you didn't succeed because you only did it halfway. Half things don't succeed."
That's exactly right. Yeah, I told every person. I shouldn't say every person. I tend to use hyperbole if you don't know that.
That's fine.
Knows that well enough about me.
Yeah.
But
I always use hyperbole.
Go for it.
Most of the people I spoke with, who would naysay, I would tell them, well, we've never given them a reason to come up the street, because Poor Choice top of the street, and it is terrible parking in the Old Town district of Auburn. And and I just told them, I said, we have to give them a reason. I said, we're going to give them a reason to come up here. And that was our our drive from the beginning. That's why I went to school to study coffee extraction, so that we could do it better than anyone. And we see ourselves as the best coffee extractors in California. Truly, we do. We to be the best at what we're doing. We as well, and we see ourselves as the best coffee roasters in California, and that's a big statement to make. But I can make it because it's not me doing the roasting, it's not me doing the sourcing. It's us having people around us who can do things far better than we can, and pushing people together to say, let's do it together and do it better. And that's the goal. So we've benefited from baristas since day Poor Choice, who can extract coffee and pour the best latte art and create the best ambiance that we think specialty coffee should be.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're gonna kind of step back real quick. So you guys kind of both went to college, and what are your thoughts on college? Was it super important, or was it a good thing? And there's, again, no right or wrong answer, right? Everybody has their path, so we'll kind of talk through that.
Yeah.
So Jordan went to college. He got accepted to the Master's University because he wanted to go through there and be a pastor. And I was just going to be content with staying home and being a little happy little housewife. And
right.
I school and wanted nothing to do with it. And I had watched my dad, who also didn't go to school, didn't go to college. His whole thinking behind everything growing up was always, I've got this guy that came in. He wants to be an engineer because he just graduated from, Cal Poly and got his degree in engineering. And his response was always, great, you now have a license to start learning now that you have your degree. That just because you went to school doesn't mean you have any idea how to apply any of this in the real world, or that you have any idea what you're doing. And it sort of shaped the way that I thought about school. And also, I just personally didn't enjoy high school, maybe because I was a little preoccupied and obsessed with
planning a wedding.
Married. So I just, while Jordan was going to college, I got a job working in accounting for a big medical supply company, and I took all the art and math classes and water aerobics PE classes that I could at our
underwater basket weaving
at our local community college. And I loved it. It was fun, like going in that capacity. But when I look at our lives, I don't see a lot of things that have held me back personally from not having a degree. So I'll let you speak to your experience.
Yeah, so for me, it was the direction of wanting to go into ministry full time, and um, that that ended while in college, which is a total blessing because had no business being in ministry for many other reasons that we could talk about is in depth as you would like as well. But I was a counseling major, and so I was able to do a full time counseling major um, and get that degree, which for me is what I spend most of my time in now. So I do actually spend a majority of my week in counsel with men, people who are struggling, people who need someone to walk difficult roads with, and so I do look at that degree as something that is the strength of our business as well. And so for me, college is it necessary to start a business? No. Is it necessary to really do any profession apart from one that requires a degree for it? No, but is it something that is uh, very beneficial and shows a stick to itiveness that I think lacks in our society right now? Yeah, I do. And so I learned a lot from college, and I built a ton of relationships in college, which I think is also a massive strength of the university is relationships, walking roads with people, and just learning what it means to grow up and to understand life a bit. I think it was essential for that. So, and I learned a ton. I mean, honestly, there was a great education. I there's lots of things I don't love about the university that I went to. There's lots of frustrations I have with what they teach there, but that's okay. I think you can learn from any institution, and you can grow and take from it the things that are beneficial and that ultimately can cause growth in your life. And that was certainly the case for me with college. So um, I don't regret a single moment spent in going through, and it was very difficult for us to get through. In fact, I think we're down to like $300 on my
on our $73 a month payment.
$73 a month payment of student loans.
Well, hey, isn't it going to get forgiven here soon?
Yeah, right. No, wouldn't that so fun? Yeah, so that so is it essential? No, but is it very important? Yeah, I think so, and I think it's just every person's going to benefit or not benefit uniquely.
Yeah, which luckily you guys already had established, kind of the other piece of, I guess, the equation of, when people are talking about college being important, not important, and can you make it without college? I mean, the answer is always yes, but it's like you'd better have that work ethic part mapped out, right? Because the people who are like, well, you can make it without college, I'm like, yeah, but you had better have a plan. Like, you can't just be like, I'll wing it, like,
yes,
just like marriage, right? Everyone says, well, you have to have A, B, C, D in place, and for us, it was that exact same thing. It's like we understood what it took to take care of ourselves, be able to provide for her, and she was working as well, and to be able to say, no, we can grow up together. This marriage thing doesn't require us to have all of these pieces in place before we get married, and with a caveat that maturity has to be in place, and there has to be an ability for you to understand that your spouse can never fulfill you, and you can never fulfill your spouse. Like, I can get into marriage counseling, which we do often as a couple, and we can talk through what we think builds marriage and what strengthens marriage. But but there's it's the same sort of thing, right? We want to we think that these things will prepare us, and I think that's where most kids are with college. They think if I jump into college, then I'm ready when I come out. And most often, I think we've flipped that, right? I think there needs to be an understanding of what college is and isn't, so that you don't go in expecting something that it won't give you. So there's a balance with that.
Yeah, perfect. Well, I think bringing the topics of because you've mentioned the balancing the family and the growing the marriage with working with your co-owner, right? There's challenges in that. I think touching on that with actually growing and a little bit more of the nitty gritty of running a business. We'll dive into that in episode 2. Probably a good spot to wrap up episode 1. Episode 2, we'll really get into those details. We'll do a quick pause for our speed round. All right, speed round question number 1. So what is the worst cup of coffee you have ever had?
The first one after you're used to third wave coffee. Once you get used to third wave coffee and you go someplace and you try the burnt old beans again, I'll never forget that feeling of being so disappointed that I couldn't drink the old stuff anymore.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah, once once you break your brain, and it's like what's the saying, that what you don't know can't hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, man, once you understand, the craft world of food and drink, and you understand what it can be, then you typically don't want to settle for what most of it is.
Yeah, I would equate it to like the first time, like, I know this would be back in the 90s, but you had, you didn't want to drink Folgers. You're like, how do my grandparents drink this stuff? This is terrible. This is like acid water. Ugh.
Yeah.
And then at church you'd like put like a whole bunch of creamer and tons of sugar in it, and it would be like drinkable, right? And then you had like your first, like, I know, this back in, but your first Starbucks, and you're like, oh, this is pretty good. I can drink this. This is it's only gotten better from there, but you're like, oh, okay, I see why people drink good coffee now. This makes way more sense.
Yep.
For sure.
Yeah, and for me, it was like, then I went to Italy and I lived there for a little bit and had my first like cappuccino, and you're like, no wonder these people drink these every day. This is amazing. Like, I'm never going to do anything again. So yeah, I would definitely agree with that point. It definitely was an evolution, but man, the first time you have a good cup of coffee, you're like, oh, okay.
Yep. For sure.
Yep.
Very cool. Yeah. So, I mean, kind of in that same vein, like, and this can have a lot of pieces to it, but what was the best cup of coffee you've ever had? And that usually, that's nuanced, and you could probably have it's probably like some place with someone, but what was that cup of coffee you're like, oh, this was just the best. This is it.
Go ahead.
So for me, it was day 1 of Poor Choice. We had just installed our equipment, and I had extracted the first espresso on bar, and I poured milk over it for a cortado, which is even parts espresso and even parts milk. And I'll never forget that moment of tasting our coffee in our cafe after all of the work, and going, this is going to work. I mean, it was just different. And I studied coffee and understood extraction, and it was perfectly extracted, and it was just, it really was.
Yeah, you had that little voice inside you, just like, I didn't totally blow it. That's so awesome.
Yeah.
This is, I'm not an idiot. See, Mom, I'm not an idiot.
Yeah. Moment.
Oh, that's awesome. That's good stuff.
Well, okay, so off coffee, if any of our listeners are coming to Auburn for a particular event, what are you telling people to come in town for?
Yeah, so we got to be a part of kind of the early stages of an event called the Co-op, and it was the whole intent of it was to create to push together makers who are locally derived and who make their whatever they're selling. It's home food, it's actual art that they're making with their hands, not stuff they're importing from China, but actual stuff that's made.
Crafters and artisans.
Yeah, crafters and artisans. And the whole purpose, and Maura Rowe, who was our economic she was head of economic development at the time here in the city. She since has moved to the East Coast again.
Deserters.
Left us. Whatever. But she, the whole goal was, and also her with Deb from Stella Parker, where we envisioned Poor Choice, we sort of gave them as much help and support as we could to create this idea of, if you have young makers, and it was specifically to a younger crowd who has a social media presence, then we can build around their social media activity, some hubbub around this event. And it really worked, and we created a really cool vibe with this co-op. And so since I was involved as the president of Old Town for years, we brought it down to Old Town and we ran it for a few years. We've since stopped running it, and it has kind of fizzled out to not be exactly what we intended for it originally. But there's a new event that just happened 2 weeks ago called the A-Town Classic, and it's one that we're going to have semi-annually. And it's vintage skateboarders and skaters, and we have a slalom course that starts at the top by Poor Choice and goes down the hill. And there's a whole bunch of makers, and it just was truly an event of people just standing and talking and laughing and watching something we know nothing about, slalom skateboarding, and having fun because it was truly a community-driven event. So incredible event. The Western States, which is the 100-mile run, the most famous 100-mile run in the States. It happens every June. It is a fantastic event to come and be a part of, to watch these super athletes run from Tahoe to Auburn. And it finishes in Auburn, and it's such an amazing event to stay up for, watch the come in. It's a community event. It's a beautiful thing to be a part of. We are the endurance capital of the world, and we think that endurance is what drives most people's to Auburn, and it's the thing that we think can keep them here. There's so much to do on our trails. There's so much to do in our rivers. There's every mountain bike trail. The new bike park is incredible. Our son rides his bike there. Back a half hour ago. It's Auburn has everything to do right here in this little town for true, which really does places.
Very cool. Bring your stuff to Auburn. Just vote out Gavin Newsom. It'll be great.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so last question to speed around. So we know you guys do live music there at the Poor Choice.
Yeah.
So if you guys have one band, Living Dead, that you can bring back to play a set on the back patio at Poor Choice, who's it going to be? And you guys can differ on this. It can be different, but who's it going to be?
It's easy. So for me, it's Manzanita. They were
No. One band, living or dead.
I know.
Yeah, anybody.
The whole world, like all.
Oh, you're saying?
Yes.
I thought you meant someone who's already played at Poor Choice.
No. Anybody, anywhere, anytime.
Oh,
living or dead.
Oh. I would play. I would have Allison Krauss in Union Station. I'm a bluegrass guy, and Allison Krauss is my favorite vocalist of all time. And bluegrass is intended to be played acoustic, and to have the radio playing acoustically and hearing Allison Krauss singing at my place would be the ultimate dream.
Okay, Melinda, is same, or who are you bringing in?
Oh, I think it's got to be Miley Cyrus and Wrecking Ball.
Yes. Also meant for acoustic outdoors. Is that yes, 100%.
I mean, when I see Miley Cyrus, I think Auburn.
Yes,
she's got a very Auburn feel.
Auburn, yeah. Where would you put the Wrecking Ball? Right there on Old Town Street, on Old Main Street, right there. Where the Wrecking Ball would go?
Yeah.
Yes.
Top to the bottom, yes.
It come right from Awful Annie's right down to right down to Auburn Ale House. It'd be amazing.
It would be.
Yeah. Yes. Done.
I
don't
know. Mel doesn't listen to a ton of music.
Listen, he's busy. When I get in the car, I need silence.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair enough. Absolutely.
Or coming and reading a book. That would be her.
Well, Miley, if you're listening, we have an idea for you. So I'm pretty sure she tunes into the show.
We'll have our people talk to your people. We're going to work on that. I think we got a thing going here. It's going to be good.
Perfect. Well, real quick, where can people find you guys and just check out your shop on social media?
So you can find us at Poor Choice Auburn, POUR, as we say. You can also find us on Facebook if you type in Poor Choice.
Yeah, Poor Choice.
That works.
Yeah, Poor Choice Auburn.
And then you can find us on our website, www.thepoorchoice.com.
And as always, those links will be in the show notes. So for quick access, go ahead and just go to the show notes, and you can find them there and like, subscribe, follow, all the things.
If you're ever cruising up I-80 and you want an amazing cup of coffee, Jordan, where's your guys' address, and where can they find you? We'll put this in there also.
177 Sacramento Street.
Okay.
Yeah.
It'll be the one where all the cars are parked out front and there's people sitting out front. It'd be pretty easy to find.
Just a fair warning, if you're headed up to Tahoe, you pass Auburn, your next coffee shop is going to be Starbucks and Colfax, and you don't want to go there.
Yeah.
So, really, Auburn's your last spot for true coffee.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yep. Maybe the next good coffee would maybe what? The Coffee Bar in Truckee would be maybe the next stop.
Drink Coffee Do Stuff is our good friends up there. In
Okay. There you go.
Great. Yep. That's the next stop in Truckee for sure.
Okay. There you go.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yep.
Perfect. Very cool.
Well, thanks so much for being on. Looking forward to hearing all about, next episode is going to be about business, launching business, and marriage and business, and all that fun stuff. So,
yeah. We appreciate you guys having you guys on. We're excited to do the next episode. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having us.
Just so you know, none of our guests have been paid to be interviewed. We don't charge for downloads, and we have never sold ads.
And though our wives and accountants wish we would, probably, this podcast is purely for the distribution of amazing stories and information only.
However, we do need to make one quick legal jargon-filled disclaimer. The information provided here is for educational purposes only. You should not construe any such information or other material as legal, tax, investment, or financial advice. Make sure you contact a professional before you decide to do something. If you have any questions, feel free to give us a contact or drop an email to info@wealthpreservationpodcast.com, or you are welcome to reach out to any of our guests using the information provided in the episode.
Or in human speak, don't act solely on a guest that you heard on a podcast one time, because that would be dumb.
Thanks.